Look over here. In general, we try to kind of stay away from intraoral palpation because of many reasons. You know, with all the situations that are happening with diseases and all kinds of stuff, the less we do inside the patient's mouth, the better. So if I can palpate and I put my finger here and say open, and I can feel the coronoid process here. If it's painful, I can also palpate it intraorally here, and it's going to be also painful. So what's the reason to do the intraoral palpation when you can really approach the problem from the outside? The only area that we cannot come from the outside to palpate is actually the area where the medial pterygoid and the lateral pterygoids kind of meet, very deep. So, if I separate here, put my finger where it's very slippery, the vestibular region of the maxilla, and I just follow the anatomy back, and I can feel the end of the maxilla. I can just go and you feel how it ends at the end. Then I may say, bring your mandible towards the left. No, that's the right. That's your left. And I feel that the space opens a little bit more. I try to find where the space is open, and it's very deep and a little bit superiorly. So if I palpate just a little bit further up, I feel the pterygoid region. If that is painful, I don't need to palpate the other parts of the medial pterygoid, unless you really want to impress the patient. So if I really want to impress the patient, I can keep my finger externally in the angle of the mandible. And then I'll say, open a little bit, raise your tongue, and I go sublingually, directing my inside finger until both fingers touch. And that's the medial pterygoid. So you have it in your manual. You can do it, but you have to go sublingually into the angle of the mandible there until both fingers pinch. But if you did this palpation and this was sensitive, you don't need to palpate the other one. Huh? Don't make your patients worse. But I could feel the coronoid process there, or I can feel the coronoids open wide here. So it's the same palpation from the inside than from the outside. You can play with that. Now, what you have to realize that in here, in the inframandibular structures, you have the suprahyoids and the infrahyoid muscles. So if I need to palpate the suprahyoids, you have to realize that it's all the area of the chin and the lateral aspect of the borders of the mandible coming to the hyoid. All this is suprahyoids. So you can palpate those muscles by going kind of deep and coming towards the symphysis. And it would be the same if I'm doing maybe a soft tissue technique in that area, where I can feel where the hyoid bone is right on top of the cartilage. If you feel your cartilage and you go on top of it, you feel the anterior aspect of the hyoid. So I can hold the hyoid, and you can work some soft tissue techniques, or I can stretch it. Or maybe you can just get to the hyoid and just do a little bit of a hyoid mobilization, like a soft tissue technique. So you could be palpating the inframandibular structures, you could be palpating the anterior digastric, you could be palpating the mylohyoid muscle, or you could be doing a gentle movement of the hyoid bone, or you could be supporting the hyoid bone and working a little bit on some soft tissue stretches, just to relieve the tension coming into the inferior border of the symphysis. But if you go below the hyoid, and you can wiggle the hyoid and the cartilage should be wiggable. This is a wiggable structure. And it should crepitate. Because if this is the vertebra and this is the cartilage, when you move this way, it actually kind of catches on the lateral borders of the vertebral body and crack, 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 crack. If something is pulling the cartilage out, then you feel that this is empty and there's no crepitation. So if you feel that this is empty, you have the sternocleidomastoid muscle, you have the cartilage, and you have kind of an open space here. So you kind of put your fingers kind of in a 45-degree situation, and you can palpate the anterior structures of the neck as the prevertebral structures. If you go straight back, that's basically how the transfer processes are. So it's more like the middle and the inferior pharyngeal constrictor muscle. If you push the cartilage towards the left and you go to the center of the vertebra, you're on the longus colli. And you can feel the disc in between vertebral bodies. So put your finger here so you don't blame it on me. And you can feel the vertebral body. If you go down, you feel, can you feel a little space in between the vertebra above and the vertebra below? That's the disc. And you press the disc back and it gives you arm pain, then you know that you have a protrusion of the disc. But this is going to be longus colli, and laterally, if you go straight back, without pushing the cartilage out, you feel that bony structure? That's the transfer process. And that's where the constrictor muscle comes all the way around, here. So this is constrictor, that's longus colli, the front of the neck, coming all the way down to the area of the sternum. Okay? And then you go to the other side. Sternocleidomastoid muscle, cartilage, there's a space. If you go in 45 degrees, you fall into the vertebral body. So you're like this, coming this way. If you go back, you hit here. So this is the constrictor muscle, and this is the longus colli muscle. You follow? So you can palpate the left side or the right side for referred patterns of pain from the infrahyoids and the prevertebral structures. Relax. You can do this sitting, standing, but I prefer most of the time to do it laying down. Because don't forget that here you have the carotid artery. Don't squeeze it for more than 3 minutes. All right? So you feel the pulse go around it. Now here I'm in the longus colli, and out here I'm on the middle and inferior constrictor muscle.
If you wanted to get the pharyngeal constrictor muscle to contract, what action would you do? Would you swallow when you feel it contract?
Actually, you will feel it in clenching,
okay,
and you will feel it in flexion of the head.
Okay.
So when you have to work this muscle, don't forget that when you relax that muscle, the constrictor is you put them a little bit in flexion to relax it. Then you rotate for the middle and you extend. All right? Then you come back to neutral, you flex them, you rotate, and you extend them.
So you're extending kind of at that mid-C, like in
so
the...
you're moving the mid-cervical spine.
Into extension, okay.
Then you relax the muscle, you side bend the muscle, and then you stress the inferior.
Again, extending the kind of mid-cervical spine.
Going all the way from mid-cervical down to lower cervical,
Okay.
because you have to get to the lower constrictor. Then you come back, little flexion, side bending, and now you have to get all the way back here.
Okay.
All right? And then you do a little long axis distraction. Relax and let go. So the infrahyoids are easy because you have full superficial from the chin to the hyoid, from the hyoid to the sternum, laterally to the cartilage. Then you push the cartilage away for the longus colli, and you go laterally down, for the constrictor muscles. And then you can use the same basic principle, like maybe holding the hyoid and doing just a little bit of soft tissue management of that side.
Oh, you always hold it.
Hold it, because otherwise you just drag the hyoid bone down.
Yeah.
Or you hold it here and you stretch it up here,
Yeah.
or here, or here. Distract. That's easy,
That's easy.
all right? Okay, let's go back